Let's do it.
Rolls out to the right. 5 seconds to go in the first half. Dante fires deep to the left. Moss caught it at the 11, but now he pitches it to Mo Williams. Touchdown!
You gotta be kidding me!
Welcome back for another episode of the Climb in the Pocket podcast. I am your host, Jason Brown, joined this evening by the man, the myth, the legend, the Saxy Prince. What's going on, my man?
Yo. We don't have the full crew on today. It's a little sad. I know Miles has some other obligations as well as JR. You know, he's QB1, so, we got all the important people. We'll say that right now. Got all the important people. No, I'm kidding.
Stirring up trouble already.
I got to do it. So this is just me and you. When my question today is, when you were real small, what was that dream job that you thought you would pursue? And maybe you already did pursue it, but what was that dream job?
Yinka. Our parents are immigrants, so I feel like you already know what the one or two jobs that were put as acceptable options were for me when I was young. So I want to see if you can guess what the dream that was given to me was for the jobs that I was supposed to have when I grew up.
So Jason is very similar to myself, y'all. So the three jobs you can get as an immigrant parent, having immigrant parents, are doctor, lawyer, or engineer. Or maybe even banker every so often. They'll let that one slide. We didn't even get
engineer. It was just straight doctor, lawyer. And I actually thought I was going to be a doctor until I went to a program when I was in 9th grade, Summer Science Institute, Morehouse University. Basically for a summer, you go, you follow doctors around. We went to a couple different medical schools. You get to see some procedures, all that. And we had to go see an emergency colonoscopy, because some things were just going wrong with a man's backside and his insides.
His business. Yeah.
And we went into that surgery room, and I'm a pretty dark brother. And when we came out, I was ghost white. And at that moment, I was like, this is not for me. Because some people go in there and look at that being like, oh my God, that's awesome. You're saving lives. And all I could think when I was in there was like, oh my God, that is disgusting. And that was it. I kind of went through the motions for a little while, but that's when the dream of being a doctor really and truly died.
By the way, shout out to Team Darkskin representing tonight. I know you mentioned it. Miles is not here, so he's usually upholding Team Lightskin. But I myself as well was kind of on that path to being a doctor. Specifically, I know it's obviously a touchy subject, but watching The Cosby Show, it being one of my favorite shows growing up, gynecologist, obstetrician, that was something that I was actually heavily interested in. And then much like you, I didn't have quite that experience, but just when I started doing a lot of the research and how much school it was going to take, I was like, okay, I think I can handle it. And then I was getting closer and closer. I'm just like, I don't think I want to spend 12 years in school. But yeah, I found the alternate path as far as, try and be still somewhat impactful in the medicine, as well as doing something, that I enjoy doing and I already have a skill set in. So yeah, man.
All right. Been a lot going on, a lot of conversations we've had here recently, and there was something that really set folks off. You made a couple remarks about it because I think you went away for one meeting and came back to 122 notifications on your phone. But I merely posed a question to Vikings Twitter earlier in the week about Adam Thielen, and basically Pro Football Focus. An article was written by Scott Barrett where basically in the article it said Adam Thielen faced not just the easiest wide receiver schedule last year, but the easiest wide receiver schedule of the last decade. And so the methodology that they looked at was basically the average grade of the cornerbacks you faced for every target that player faced over the entire season, And that's how they came up with the with basically the distinction of Adam Thielen having the easiest schedule of any wide receiver. And so I just posed the question saying, if Adam Thielen sees tougher competition this year and Stephon Diggs being the unquestioned target leader, because when they played together, Diggs out-targeted him. What is our outlook, or what are our expectations for Adam Thielen in 2017? And folks did not like that. Folks thought I was really coming at Adam Thielen saying, he wasn't a good player or he was going to be bad in 2017, which isn't at all what I was trying to say. I'm just really curious what people are expecting from Thielen in 2017. So I know we had a bit of a conversation offline about it, but I guess we'll start off. What are your thoughts from a production standpoint, skill standpoint? What are you expecting from Adam Thielen in 2017?
Yeah, I know. Our conversation offline, I know that you and I kind of went back and forth, and I think I was kind of perceived as caping up for Adam Thielen, but I understand the sentiment of, in order for this offense to truly evolve, I think some players are going to not necessarily take a hit, but their maybe their production does, like volume stats, kind of decrease a little bit. And I think a lot of people don't really understand. And when you've maximized the efficiency and just like the production from certain aspects of, your players and stuff, your playmakers, you need to find other ways to increase that production. And I think Adam Thielen was probably right at that that cap, that threshold that really a person in his position could do. So looking at what he had faced, facing a really easy schedule, knowing that, a lot of times, a lot of his production came off of, when Stephon Diggs wasn't on the field, that's when Adam Thielen was kind of stepping up, which I think was good. We did see Adam Thielen take on more of that wide receiver one role when Diggs was not there. But when he wasn't there, it's not that he disappeared. It's just that, majority of the targets started going to Stephon Diggs, Kyle Rudolph, understandably. I think Dalvin Cook's role within this offense, as we started to see a little bit, I think that will probably be the biggest hit to guys like Adam Thielen, who, he really did start to show he could be a possession type receiver. But of the top three wide receivers, let's say if it's Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, let's just throw out Jerry's right, just because Laquan Treadwell hasn't really been on the field much lately. We probably will see a little bit reduction as far as volume stats. He's probably not going to have as many yards. I don't think his yards per catch may disappear. I think he can make up some of that that efficiency with maybe more yards after the catch. Just getting him more and more in more not necessarily one-on-one situations, but finding ways to kind of skeep him into space a little bit more. But even with that, you have guys who do a little bit better. You have guys like Stephon Diggs who a little bit quicker. You might have a Jarius Wright who plays better at that role. If you find Kyle Rudolph to improve a little bit more as far as what he can do. So I think your question was right. The way that you posted, it's like, maybe we need to step back from Adam Thielen in the respects of not how good he is, but how his production, in a way, it doesn't hurt the offense, but maybe it hinders it a little bit from other areas to improve. So,
yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head right there. Is that my point wasn't to knock Thielen down or say that his skills were going to degrade or even call him a fluke or anything like that. It was really to say that, based on the fact that we are adding weapons to the offense, it's possible that Thielen could be just as good as he was last year and not be as productive. And so with Thielen being kind of touted from a fantasy football standpoint as, a late round steal, a guy with huge upside, I was just curious because I see that upside being capped a little bit if, Michael Floyd continues to do what he's been doing, Laquan Treadwell gets healthy, Dalvin Cook gets in the mix, you have the tight ends that they want to get involved. Jet is someone that they're talking about moving to the slot. Like, it just doesn't seem like the volume is really going to be there for us to have. I guess when you talk to people right now, you go to Vikings Twitter, Dalvin Cook's going to have, 1,600 yards from scrimmage. Diggs and Thielen are both going to have 1,000 yards receiving. and Kyle Rudolph is going to be a top 5 tight end in the league from a production standpoint. Like, I don't know what's going on. I think we're going to turn into the Patriots this season.
Yeah, that's probably a 4,200 plus yard season for Sam Bradford, and but I mean, with that point, and I think that speaks to maybe not only Adam Thielen reducing role. I think, I oftentimes hear Diggs has been turned into the Jarvis or Landry. But I think that what it should do is should take away from also Diggs being that, reducing his ADOT as well as, increasing the amount of targets that he gets. I think what we should see is maybe his ADOT does start to raise and we start taking away some of those targets from him to give to guys like Dalvin and Jet, who, if we're going to see him more in the slot, he's going to win a good majority of those battles because it's such a mismatch for him. So I think what your question did is open a broader topic of, in order for us to improve as an offense, the things that went well last season are also things that might need to evolve a little bit and might need to improve even better. I know that's hard for fans to understand because it's just like, well, that's the only thing that really went well last season. But it went well, but at the same time, like I said, it didn't hinder the offense. It's just something that needs to evolve to make the offense even better.
Yeah, we probably maxed out at wide receiver last year. So if we improve offensively, it's likely to come from other positions. I mean, it's probably going to come from running back, tight end, places that we were super inefficient, in the passing game last year. So again, Adam Thielen is great. His college production profile is outstanding. He's a player that the Vikings definitely got a steal on. He is very good, but it is also possible that his production will not live up to some of the hype that I think we're expecting from him because he was so efficient on a very volatile type of play. Like, deep passing is a volatile thing, right? So, and then when you have a guy like Michael Floyd who comes into the mix, he may steal some of those targets as well when he comes back. So again, Thielen is great. We love Thielen. Thielen is very, very good unless he's going against Miles Gorham. So, unless Miles brings it out of retirement, I think Thielen will have a very, very, very good season. But again, I'm just curious at what folks are really expecting as a realistic outcome for him if all of our pieces stay healthy going into this next year.
I think, and with that point is, I don't think that you can kind of use realistic as far as what people are really thinking, because I think what everybody looks at is it as an individual basis rather than as a sum of parts. And with that, everyone's looking at, okay, this is how good Sam Bradford I definitely think he's going to do. But once they do that, they don't really identify, okay, if Sam Bradford throws for 4,000 yards, how is that split among the players? Because, okay, if Stephon Diggs is a 2,000 yard wide receiver.
I'm sorry, did you just call Stephon Diggs Megatron? Because it sounded like you just said Stephon Diggs was a 2,000 yard wide receiver.
I'm sorry, 1,000 yard wide receiver. And then, Adam Thielen's another 1,000 yard wide receiver. You're going to need to start splitting up that production. And if Kyle Rudolph, let's say he has 800 yards, Dalvin Cook has this many yards, I think everyone always looks at it individually, but doesn't look at it as like, if Sam Bradford throws for quote unquote this many yards, then that means that these X players also have the same level of production, because he can't just throw for 4,000 yards and then, 500 of them aren't represented by any of the players on a roster. So that speaks to a point that you just made that I wanted to mention.
Fair point. And one of the other things that really had people going this past week as well was Colin Cowherd said the Vikings are the most talented team in the NFC North. But then he put them with a win total that was less than the Green Bay Packers. So he said they're the most talented team. Their roster is the most talented from top to bottom. But then I think the Packers were put in his preseason predictions at 12-4, and the Vikings, I believe, were at 9-7. So I guess when you hear that first part of that, which is most talented team in the NFC North, Minnesota Vikings, what are your thoughts? Is that something you agree with, disagree with?
Yeah, like unbiased aside, I do think that the Vikings have the most talented roster. I think when you look at just look at the defensive side, I think the Viking defense arguably is a top 3 defense just on paper. I don't know how they're going to produce this year. So I definitely feel like if you just look at that side of the ball, one of the top units in the league. Now, when you go to the offensive side of the ball, we look at a guy like Sam Bradford, who, he's obviously, a lot of people are critical that he's really up and down with some people, but I do think that he's at least an average quarterback. And then you look at the playmakers, you start looking at guys like Stephon Diggs, who can make noise and become top 15, top 10 type wide receiver this season. Adam Thielen is a great number 2. Michael Floyd, we started to see some very, very good things out of camp from him. And then you look at the wide receiver, you look at the running back crew. Dalvin Cook is very, very good. And I think we started to see exactly how the Vikings might start using him after the Buffalo game. Jerick McKinnon is one of the most athletic, not just running backs, players in the NFL. And then you also have Latavius Murray, who I know that we jokingly call him Expensiata, but I think he would do much better than Asiata in goal line short yardage distance. So when you look at the Vikings from kind of top to bottom, you take away the offensive line that might hurt them. There are a lot of playmakers on this unit and on this team. So, and I look at the Green Bay Packers, and their defense is not scary at all. Their offense has a lot of mediocre or less than or like below average type players. But the one thing that keeps them together is, number 12. Aaron Rodgers is arguably one of the greatest quarterbacks we have ever seen play this game.
Hold on, I'm sorry. I'm not sure I quite understand the point that you were just making there. So you were saying that they're a subpar team, but what's the position that's giving them the overall edge?
The elitist quarterback, which for the time and time again that I have always agreed with, that if you have a guy that is so good at the position, which is very, very rare, I think there's only really 2 teams that can say this, that their quarterback situation, because they have guys who are arguably the best we've ever seen play the game, they can bring their below average to mediocre team to the promised land each and every year, which I think is more rare than not, which is why I don't put my stock into trying to find that guy, because your likelihood of hitting on him, very, very low. But to the point of this, yes, the reason why the Green Bay Packers, and why I kind of agree with Colin Cowherd, is, yes, I definitely see the Packers winning at least 10, 11, 12 games, because Rodgers will consistently give that to you. Whereas as far as the Vikings, who are still trying to figure a lot of things out, because Sam Bradford isn't quite a top 10 quarterback, you can't expect him to bring you out of that without having the necessary weapons around him, which I think the Vikings have finally done.
Yeah, and that's the thing that it was odd to me that people really were pushing back on that idea as much as they were, because if there's anything that we as Vikings fans understand is, without a quarterback, you're destined to be at best kind of okay, right? Like, we had arguably the best running back of his generation on our team as the backbone of our team for many years. We've had great defenses, but the only years that we have had any kind of success that any of us can really point to is really 2009 is really what we have, and saying that was a year where the team, everything came together, great defense, great offense. But the big thing that changed there is we got great quarterback play. And so it's funny to me that even though most anyone who watches football acknowledges that Aaron Rodgers is a vastly superior quarterback to Sam Bradford, people still also are pushing back against the notion that because the Green Bay Packers have Aaron Rodgers, it's more likely than not that they will have a better record for us, when, again, yes, we have a better defense. That's not in doubt. But just having number 12 on the field for them gives them a chance in every game in a way that a team that has an average quarterback, we don't have that chance. Everything really needs to go right for us in most games for us to win. And like last year, most of the games that we won featured a special teams touchdown or a defensive touchdown or multiple turnovers from the defense. And it's tough to rely on those things, which are very random, to propel your team to wins week after week after week after week after week. So yeah, Aaron Rodgers being there, it gives them an edge every week.
Yeah,
we just don't have.
Yeah, and it's you actually made a very good point as far as like the everything going right for the Vikings to win. And I mean, this has kind of been our blueprint for the last couple of years. In 2014, this was the blueprint. We didn't know necessarily that Teddy was going to start, so we had Matt Castle, and we started off okay, and then obviously it derailed to end of the season 7-9. Now 2015 hits, and Teddy entrenched as a starting quarterback. What he's asked to do, and I've made this point before, I always judge quarterbacks on what they're asked to do versus this kind of superficial, this is what they should be doing. And I think Teddy was definitely he was asked to game manage. He was asked to don't lose us the game. And you saw him in his last press conference where he said, based on what they asked me to do, I think I did a really good job. And I think when you look at the Vikings in 2015, there was a lot of situational football that they were put in, and they more often than not won those situations. You go back to the Rams game when Mike Zimmer had asked Chad Greenway to tell them, hey, we want to start on defense, but we want to kick this way. You saw a few plays in Green Bay go the right when we played in Lambeau. You saw a few things go our way that they didn't in 2016. And I think that's where the Vikings need to evolve as a team, where Mike Zimmer is always, kind of he's played that defensive-minded coach where he wants to, eliminate the really, really tough situations, and then just play situational football. Whereas I think the Vikings need to switch gears and just we need to kind of unleash our offense a little bit more. And then I think that'll allow the defense to, do what it does best, and Mike Zimmer be able to explore some of the things he wants to do with the defense. But yeah, it's definitely this the way the team operates is we kind of this let's win the situational football, and maybe we need to take a step back from the situational football and just understand that the situations are important, but sometimes some of those situations in a game are actually quite rare. Sometimes we just need to play the game as, hey, it's first and 10. We need to not think about, the fourth quarter at 3 minutes left and we have the ball on our 5 yard, we're going to march down the field. We need to be thinking about, hey, it's 1st and 10 in the first quarter. Maybe we need to throw the ball to open up the game. Or, maybe it's 3rd and 6 and we do a surprise, shotgun run and it catches them off guard and we are able to get, 8 yards, whatever the case is. So yeah, I think you just made a really good point, and I wanted to further dive into it.
Thank you, sir. Well, we've danced around it quite a bit here, and I know we've had some very cursory discussions about it. But with all that said, and you may have kind of hinted at it a little bit, what are you saying going into the season? What's your thoughts on the Vikings win total for this year?
I always give myself, a floor and a ceiling every single year. I think our ceiling right now, as it stands, is at best 10-6 in second place in the division. And I think our floor is definitely 8-8. I don't think we'll go to 7-9. I originally had thought that in the beginning of the, before the draft happened, and maybe some of the off-season free agency acquisitions that we had, Michael Floyd, I did really feel like, hey, this definitely could be a 7-9 unit or 7-9 team. But I think as I'm starting to see some of the playmakers who are coming to the forefront, the Dalvin Cooks, the Pat Elflein, Michael Floyd emerging, Jarius Wright re-emerging again, Stephon Diggs looking as crisp as ever, Adam Thielen still looks very, very good. I just don't feel like this offense is going to take another step back. So obviously taking that step forward would probably win us, a game or two more. So, but right now I'm still sitting at probably about a 9-7.
Yeah, not much to add on that. I think I pretty much agree with you bang on. I think 9-7 would be if I just had to take a stab at where they were going to go. I think things can go right for the team and we could end up, 11-5. Things could go perfect and maybe we hit 12-4. but I think 9-7 feels, like a fair expectation based on kind of where we are in this team, especially from the offensive side of the ball and some of the questions we have on the back end of the defense. We are thin there, so there are some questions there, and then we still need to see this offensive line gel, and we still need to see if Sam Bradford can take that next step. So 9-7 feels fair.
With that, what kinds of things do you feel if let's say we do get to 10 wins, 11 wins, what kinds of things do you feel needs to go right? I know I sent you a something that Kian had did, excuse me, and he had said that there's only two teams last season that had no offensive line changes at all, and both those teams were in the Super Bowl last year. So, what do you feel as if the kinds of things that need to go right this season that need to happen in order to have the Vikings winning 10 or 11 games?
Yeah, so with that, and Arif kind of posted it a little tongue in cheek, and that's something I would need to dig into, because it's also something I've asked Eric if he'd be willing to either come on this pod or maybe in a different setting. Have a conversation where we go over what stats are descriptive, so they tell you what happened, and what stats are predictive, which is they have carryover value, or it can tell you how things are going to go in the future. Because I don't know, I don't know that anyone else has actually gone back to look to see if just having cohesion on your offensive line over the course of an entire season is something that is strongly correlated to wins or future wins or something like that. So I would be hard pressed to just come out and say, well, if the offensive line stays healthy all year, then we're going deep in the playoffs. I think what needs to happen is, more than anything, I think what needs to happen for the team to go deep is for Mike Zimmer to take the shackles off of Pat Shurmur and let Shurmur really open things up. I think one of the things that often gets overlooked is that when you have a great defense, you should be able to be a little bit more aggressive on offense, because let's say you do have a turnover, you can rely on your defense to maybe stop them from scoring or holding them to 3. But what you usually get when you have defensive-minded head coaches is you get these guys who are just very risk averse by nature, right? And so you hear Mike Zimmer where you want to, hold the ball, grind the clock, and really let your defense win it. And that makes it really tough, because most teams that go deep in the playoffs have strong offenses and strong defenses. And it's tough to have a strong offense if you can't really open up the offense, right? So more than, hoping that the defense can score a bunch of touchdowns, or that, Sherrills and whichever rookie takes over the returning jobs can score a bunch of touchdowns and those fluky type things, I really just want to see us open things up offensively and really take advantage of all these skill position players that we've added in. And if that leads to a few more turnovers from Sam Bradford, it leads to a few more turnovers, but then we trust in the fact that we do have this, elite, top 5, top 3, potentially even better defense if that secondary all comes together, and rely on them to keep us in games, versus, hoping we get to 21 points and the defense can just hold on for us at the end,
Yeah, and that, I mean, you had a point as far as the offensive line, wanting to dig into that a lot more. I know that was a storyline when you look at the Vikings, who won 11 games 2015, and that was a storyline going into 2016 that they talked about a lot. Like, hey, this was one of the most cohesive units that the Vikings had last season. Yes, they had some injuries on the offensive line, but it did end up having us, as much as Teddy was pressured. We were able to still win 11 games. And then obviously the two teams last season who went to the Super Bowl, they had offensive lines that, for the most part, they were not shuffling guys around. So I know that we obviously look at these really strong offensive line, the Dallases, the Pittsburghs, the Washington's offensive line, some other really good units. But we almost have to ask yourself: is it the units that are like top of the line who are really helping their teams to actually win football games consistently, or is it the teams that might be a little bit kind of middle of the road, maybe below average, that are getting their teams to those promised lands? And I mean, it also could speak of either weapons and stuff that are confounding variables and stuff, but
I know that the Patriots haven't always had the greatest offensive line. Granted, they have Tom Brady, but at the same time, he still has to play behind that line. Russell Wilson, for instance, we look at his efficiency stats, and he's one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the league. And we know for a fact that his offensive line has really been up and down these last couple of years. So
I'd like to take this moment to just remind everyone that's listening that Russell Wilson is a better NFL quarterback to date than Andrew Luck. Feel free to send all of your responses to @SaxyPrince on Twitter.
No, I actually, just a quick blurb. I actually was down on both of those quarterbacks when they first came in the league. I was really down on Russell Wilson, and I've just always been somewhat skeptical on the hype on Andrew Luck. I have seen some really great plays out of him, but I think you'll remember seeing Russell Wilson 2 years ago when he was in the NFC Championship game. And I remember texting my brothers, I'm like, man, this dude can really ball, and they're like, yeah, we told you, but yeah, I mean, again, I think it speaks to, weapons that the offense might have, as well as maybe their quarterback situation, running back situation. But yeah, definitely both of us would be curious to see what is the impact of a top offensive line unit or consistency on the offensive line actually do for a team's win total. So,
yeah, and I need to look at it overall. When I did research the Sam Bradford breakout article that I wrote, what I found there is that unless you're at the extremes, there was limited impact on the quarterback's play based on the quality of your offensive line using Pro Football Focus's, pass blocking efficiency stats and things like that. And that actually is interesting because it aligns with some other, I guess, research that I found when I was researching or digging in for that article, is that a lot of the things like sack rate that we attribute to the offensive line are actually more connected to the quarterback, because when quarterbacks move from teams to team, those stats usually say relatively flat for quarterbacks as they go from place to place. So you have a quarterback like Sam Bradford who gets the ball out more quickly, the sack rate's going to be low regardless of the quality of the offensive line. Also, that kind of dovetails with a conversation that Luke and Eric were having on Twitter today, where Alex Boone was very, very low, was ranked very highly from a pass blocking efficiency stat standpoint, but wasn't ranked particularly highly from an overall pass blocking grade standpoint, because he didn't give up a ton of pressures because we got the ball out so quickly, but there were multiple plays where he didn't give up a pressure that he got beat. Sam just got the ball out before it could be a pressure. So yeah, that's one of those things where offensive line, if you have a good quarterback, they can mitigate the deficiencies of your offensive line. Like you said, the Patriots haven't always had the greatest offensive line, and they still are able to have a great offense year over year over year because they do have Tom Brady. But if you have an offensive line that is trotting out, a TJ Clemmings, that can be something that does cost you wins, because, as we saw, TJ can't really be trusted to do much of anything out there. And that can be something that's hugely impacting. So if you have a really terrible offensive line like Seattle did, or like, us with TJ out there, then it's impactful. But having a great offensive line from a quarterback play standpoint, which, tends to be the thing that has the biggest impact on your offensive performance and your team's wins, the impact wasn't as great as some people like to say it is.
Yeah, because I mean, again, if you look at Cleveland, for instance, I think Cleveland has a kind of an underrated. I mean, going into this year, they kind of have an underrated offensive line unit, and oftentimes what you hear is people are just like, well, the quarterback just needs to get out quick passes, all that stuff. And the problem with, when you focus less on, some of the schematic things that are an issue, versus just like, okay, this is what the quarterback needs to do. Again, it goes back to my point about looking at everything really individualistically. The quarterback, yes, he can be that facilitator that can get the ball out quickly. But again, we look at Sam Bradford, who had a very, very high completion percentage, but he had a very, very low average depth of the target. And getting the ball quicker, yes, it alleviates the pressure that your offensive line does. But as far as moving the ball, I mean, you're looking at, 20 plays just to get the ball all the way down the field versus, let's say, 11 or 12. And I'd be curious to see, how much, like how big of an impact, it's good that teams are sustaining drives, but like sustaining drives that obviously result in not just in first downs, but also in points. So again, it is important as far as not having, like you said, an extreme. I think that's the case in a lot of positions, extreme to the worst, obviously. But yeah, I think for a lot of positions, and I mean, and even some instances that, quarterback play, I think if you can find some schematic things that you can do to get around those deficiencies, I think you can still see pretty good production.
Well, that is, you set me up perfectly there, because you talked about a very high completion percentage, and Sam Bradford completed 71.4% of his passes, I believe, if I'm quoting Chris Thomason correctly with the stats that he tweeted out there. 71.4% of his passes versus Buffalo. However, it was only for 35 yards. So that kind of aligns with what you were saying, but a bit to the extreme.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts? What did you take away when you watched that Buffalo game? Really focusing in on, our first team defense versus their first team offense, and then, their first team defense versus our first team offense. What did you take away? What were your thoughts? Anything that really had you concerned, or you're just like, man, it's the first preseason game. Who really cares?
I don't go as extreme as, man, it's first preseason game. There's nothing really to watch here. I think there are some things that you can take away from the game. I was very, very concerned as far as, I tweeted it out when I was at training camp. I saw it was towards the end of the night where I saw some more of the deep passes, but I remember going up to a lot of the bloggers and beat writers, and I'm just like, I haven't seen very many deep passes, you guys. And they're just like, yeah, but they were just like, yeah, you probably shouldn't tweet that out because it's going to concern people. And when that game happened, I saw a lot more, I saw Dalvin Cook get on the edge a little bit, I saw some screen passes. I saw some, some checkdowns and stuff, but the amount of checkdowns that I was seeing, or just the, again, low average depth of target, was very concerning, because I think people were very, very excited that they saw Bradford look very well. But he's supposed to, for two reasons. He is a physically gifted quarterback when you just look at arm strength, and he can be very accurate when he's throwing the ball down the field. The problem is again, we can't, our defense can't touch Sam Bradford. And there are a lot of plays where I saw that would be a sack, that would be a sack, that'd be a sack in training camp. And then when I saw him in the game, and I'm just like, that's exactly what I saw when I was watching him at training camp, is when it becomes live, can this dude handle that pressure that's coming towards him? And I think because of the lack of mobility, I think it lends itself to the Vikings finding themselves in sack situations more so than they should have. There are a few plays that I saw, Sam, this is a pocket. If you climb the pocket just a little bit more, even if you have to check it down, I want to see you climb the pocket, look one more time to see if there's a guy you can find open or throw open, which I think he's good at. But then he would settle for the check down. So I think that was really concerning. I didn't get as up in arms as far as the offensive line just yet. I think we don't have it solidified what our starting five is. So that chemistry is going to need to be built over these next couple of games. So I tempered my expectations there. As far as our defense, I felt like more so than the offense, this was more rust. Even Harrison Smith, Anthony Barr, they got beat on, a few cutback lane type situations, and run game wasn't the greatest. Trey Waynes had issues and stuff, and he's going to get targeted this season. And I'm okay with him, starting to look at shadowing the first wide receiver, really battle against some of these top edge wide receivers, because it's not always prudent for the Vikings to shadow with Xavier Rhodes. Schematically, there's some things that I'm sure Zimmer wants to do with Xavier Rhodes, but he can't because he's shadowing, top wide receivers. So I'm sorry,
Yinka. The point you're making right now is incredibly insightful, and I think I'm going to try to find, some breaking news music. But breaking news, ladies and gentlemen.
Let me see if I can get the
see if I
QB1
can get
has joined the podcast at the perfect time because he actually wrote an article about what we're talking about. QB1, what's going on, my man?
What's going on, fellas? How y'all doing?
Hey, man, we're doing it, trying to hold things down without you and Miles, but you're here, and we're going to get you right in there. We're going to get you right, on the microphone to let us know what were your takeaways from the Buffalo game. Yanka was already kind of speaking to kind of his thoughts on the offense, his wanting to see Bradford maybe navigate the pocket a little bit better, take some more shots downfield, take some chances. Some of the concerns around, Trey Waynes and how Buffalo's strategy starting out seemed to be just put Sammy Watkins on Trey Waynes and then throw the ball to Sammy Watkins. But kind of building on that, what were your thoughts? And I know you wrote a little bit about it. So, yeah.
I got an intro real quick for JR. Here it is, y'all. This is for Jared. All right, there we go. There you go, JR. You go ahead. You go ahead.
Thanks for that, Yinka. But the biggest takeaways I had from it was that the first team offense didn't look, middle of the road like we expected to see. We wanted to see some type of improvement, but it seemed to be the same old story from last year, and that's the one thing we really didn't want to see. We wanted to at least see him move the ball, at least down the field. The first drive, they didn't really move the ball at all, and the second drive was really a disaster as well. So we wanted to see improvement from the offensive line as well. The run movement at the line of scrimmage wasn't bad initially, but it really got worse as the first drive went on and the second drive as well. I really thought the second and third team offensive line played really well, and they displayed some of the things that we wanted to see out of the first team offensive line. Everybody knows what happened with Mike Remmers and him giving up the sack. We didn't want to see that. Alice Boone was okay. Rashad Hill was kind of a disappointment. He gave up the second sack, I believe it was, that everybody blamed on Dalvin Cook, but Rashad Hill really whiffed on that play, completely got beaten. So offensive line was a big disappointment, even though it was only 2 drives. I thought Sam Bradford didn't play well either. The few throws that he did make, most of them was checkdowns or a screen. Passes that he did complete to Diggs, they were really inaccurate to where he couldn't run after the catch. And then the one bootleg that he had, he just threw it in the dirt to Diggs. I didn't see the all-22 film of it. I'm not sure if Diggs slipped or anything like that, but the ball really wasn't close. So I kind of was disappointed in the way Bradford played as well. I really wanted to see him, navigate the ball down the field and take some more chances, especially on the 3rd and 12. He just opted to check down to Dalvin Cook, and I thought there were some guys that might have came open. From what I seen, it was really hard to see from the TV angle, but I thought if he was a little bit more patient, he might could have tested them downfield a little bit more, at least attempt to get the first down. So those were
all right.
Things offensively that I was disappointed in.
Well, that's fair. Well, let's try to bring things back up here. Let's go with a little positivity. JR, who were your big winners from the Buffalo game? Who were the guys that really stood out for you when you watched on film?
I think a lot of guys from the rookie class really stood out. Stacy Coley was a guy that jumped off the screen. Pat Elflein and Isadora did a good job in that second team offensive line. But the biggest winner of the night were 2 guys on the defensive side of the ball, and Tayshawn Bauer, who really did a good job of just flashing, setting the edge. He had a sack, setting the edge against the run. He did really good with that. Jaleel Johnson had a sack. He flashed. And Eric Wilson, another undrafted guy that had a really good night. He was flying all over the place at Mike Backer. And, a lot of those guys really positioned themselves to at least fight for a final 53-man roster spot, especially Wilson and Bauer. So I think those guys really helped themselves.
That's awesome. Prince, how about you, man? What were your big takeaways?
I just wanted to make a note because, JR, you did mention Tayshawn Bauer. I've seen a few takes as far as wanting to stash Tayshawn Bauer on the practice squad. I think Tayshawn Bauer and he's actually one of the guys that I actually really like watching. I think he's becoming one of those guys where you kind of have an issue now. A good issue, obviously. When you start looking at, who that 48, 49, 50, 51 guy is, you might have to look at a Tayshawn Bauer and bringing him on the active roster, because if you put him on a practice squad, I just don't see him. I don't see him making it very long. I think someone's going to try to pluck him off, put him on, their active roster. So,
oh my goodness, Yinka, nobody wants you to get your takes off today because once again, we got breaking news. Once again. The man is here, Mr. Miles Gorham. What is going on, my man? Welcome.
Yeah, just finally getting back from the in-laws.
Yeah, how was that? You made it out in one piece.
It is what it is.
And just, most important thing, how's Teddy doing?
Teddy's doing better. He's still likes to eat random things, though, so that's got to work on that a little bit, but he's doing good.
Well,
wait, did you guys say that Miles is here?
We do have Miles Gorham here.
New sound effects. I love it.
The biracial angel.
And we were doing so good with the team dark skin, and then Miles got to come all up here with his caramely goodness and all that stuff.
Wow, it's like that. Okay. All right, I'm out. It was just a quick drive-by, so.
No, I was just getting into but I guess my one takeaway to finish it up is I think Tayshaun Bauer needs to make this squad. But Miles, do you have any takeaways that you saw from Buffalo? Any good, bad?
I know. I'm sure Jay already touched on it, but Eric Wilson, I thought the guy just looked like he belonged. I know when I was watching the second half of the game, he just stood out because he just not everybody, not all those guys, even the undrafted ones and all that. They just none of them. Some of them just don't look like they belong, and he just looks like he belongs out there with at least the twos. So I'm hoping they gets a little more opportunity moving forward to kind of prove himself. So I liked him a lot. I heard you speak on Tayshaun Bauer. He looked really good. Other guy that I know I'm sure you guys touched on was Pat Elflein. I think
Miles, talk about your mans. Your mans. Come on, man. Talk about your mans.
Nobody wants to talk about it.
I'm a little unfortunate that my Mr. Mankato pick was the only player that didn't play. I was kind of surprised by that.
No, but you were a Stacey Coley truther from the beginning. From the minute we drafted him, he was one of the guys that you said you were really going to be looking forward to seeing. So,
yeah, definitely.
Tell us about your mans. He had a great game.
He did have a really good game. He looked the part. Got downfield, made some moves in open space. So, sounds like they're really excited about him. Sounds like they liked what he brought to the table and what he can bring to the table. If he can find a way to kind of help take over some of that special teams duties on, whether it's partial punt return and kick return, it might not bode too well for a guy like Rodney Adams. So, but I really liked what Stacey Coley did.
Well, that's awesome. As we move along here, because time is starting to get tight on us here, them thrones are coming up. I know JR, every time we talk about this, is over here, wondering what's wrong with everybody else, because, he and Andy, I think, might be the only two people on Vikings Twitter not watching Game of Thrones. But we got to move this thing right along. So, Seattle. We'll start with you, JR. What are the big things you're looking for when the Vikings play Seattle?
How does Blair Walsh look? I'm just kidding. I want to see at least the offense move the ball down the field, and I at least want to see him score some points, whether it's a field goal or a touchdown. Just give me something. And I want to see the offensive line improve as well as the run defense. Really, the interior on both sides is really what I want to see improve.
All right, Miles, how about you, man? What you gonna be looking for?
Yeah, definitely want to see a little bit more from, Sam Bradford from that whole offense. I think I want to see a little bit more of Dalvin Cook run the ball, just because I know the opportunities he did have against Buffalo, it didn't look too good just because the offensive line wasn't really doing their job, it seemed like. So I want to see a little bit more of that, see how he can kind of mesh into this offense, because he already proven that he can be a pass catcher out of the backfield and be a weapon in that way too. But I also want to see the run defense. I want to see them kind of step it up a little bit more. I know they struggle a little bit against Buffalo, and I know Buffalo's a really good run offense, but I know Seattle's one of those teams that does like to run the ball. So, and another quarterback that's a scrambler. So that's another issue that I know we've had in the past with the Vikings defense. Guys who like to get outside the pocket and kind of avoid some of the rush, like that Tyrod Taylor move he had on Everson Griffin. Whew! I mean, that was just a thing of beauty. But I know Russell Wilson can do stuff like that too. So. Scares me a little bit. I want to see a little bit of that. And then for Seattle, I want to see my guy, Paul Richardson. He's on my dynasty team in our league, so I know he's balling today already, so I want to see how he does, just as a side note.
I am also a Paul Richardson truther. Yanka, what you looking for, man?
Yeah, I think I'm looking for a little bit more emergence as far as our offense. The reason why I kind of temper my, freak outness, if you will, is we only did get a couple of series, so I think seeing this team through an entire quarter will be a little bit better. This offense specifically, I do want to see Stacey Coley a little bit more. I'm starting to like him a little bit more than I'm liking Adams. I was a little bit disappointed in camp from what I saw from him. Michael Floyd, I do want to see him take more of a role. I want to see maybe a deep shot or two with him, kind of streaking down the sidelines. And then I think I want to see this defense. I just want to see this defense see a little bit more flashes of, there's that Mike Zimmer defense. I know that we're not doing all the schematic things, but I do want to see at least a little bit more of what this defense can be.
Yep, no, y'all pretty much touched on it already. For me, it's offensive line. I want to see how they come together. Obviously, we're going against another strong front, so I want to see if they're able to hold up and give Bradford a little bit more time. And I want to see how Sam Bradford does navigate dealing with another aggressive defensive front that he's going to have to deal with there. And hopefully Mike Remmers will be able to correct some things and give him a little bit more time so that we can actually see some of the deep shots that have been, hinted at by folks who are at training camp in Mankato. So I guess with that, go ahead.
I'd also just like to see if Riley Reef can go at all, even if it's just a couple snaps or a series. It doesn't have to be. If he doesn't, it's not the end of the world. As long as he gets some preseason snaps at all is important. But I'd like to see him kind of get in the mix a little bit and kind of see if Rashad Hill, if Mike Remmers continues to struggle. And I know going into the season, my guess is no matter what, their plan is to keep Mike Remmers at right tackle, the starting right tackle. But I'd like to see if Rashad Hill, the way he's played at left tackle, if they need him to kind of, he's going to be their primary swing tackle anyway. So if they need to move him to the right side and kind of push Remmers a little bit, I think that'd be important too.
Awesome. So with that said, I guess who's working on what? JR, we know you are still going in, filling in the spreadsheets. You post some things this afternoon or this evening, kind of teasing, I think, your top 5. I guess what you got going on for us, man?
Yeah, just continue to fill out the spreadsheet. Like I said all along, the plan is to get it up to 200 prospects by next April and release it to everybody.
Awesome. Miles, what about you, man? You got anything on deck?
I plan on getting and diving in a little bit more the college prospects, and kind of, since the season is about to start, I'm really excited to kind of dive into that. I might look at some of my top wide receivers and running backs and quarterbacks, probably be the first three groups I kind of look at.
Awesome. Saxy Prince, you still have a lot of interview notes to transcribe. What's next for you?
Yeah, I did Eric Kendricks, came out yesterday, I believe, either yesterday or 2 days ago. Our guy is coming up, Jason, your guy, Tamuchin, Buggy Hodges. I got an interview with him, so that should be coming out. I believe it should be dropping tomorrow. If not tomorrow, it'll be Tuesday for sure. And then I'm currently working on my Teddy. The Teddy one is going to be a little bit longer. It's going to be kind of it wasn't football related, but I still got to know him a little bit better. So I'm going to kind of do kind of a narrative style thing. And then, yeah, once all the interview stuff is done, I'll start getting more into just what to prepare for the season, as well as breaking down some film, what I see over the preseason.
Awesome. I have no idea what I'm going to write next. So out there searching for inspiration. I'm sure my next Twitter argument with somebody about something will be the thing that drives me to go and do some research and then write an article about it. So I'm running short here, but obviously we'd be remiss if we just ignored all that was going on out there. So just kind of rapid fire, I wanted to go around the room. And I guess, obviously Marshawn Lynch sat during the national anthem in his game. Obviously, we have all the things that are going on in Charlottesville. So I guess JR, Miles, Yinka, and then I'll just wrap us up here. But I guess what are your thoughts on A, the Marshawn Lynch thing, and then B, just kind of the craziness that was this weekend at the University of Virginia?
Marshawn is the type of guy he's going to do what he wants to do. And Jack Del Rio said the right thing, in my opinion. Just as long as Marshawn keeps balling, just stay out of his way. The biggest thing with me is, the whole Charlottesville thing, I'm not a big politics guy, so I kind of stay out of that stuff. I just leave that to y'all. I'm not even going to say anything.
And what's going on, Miles? What about you? What are your thoughts, man?
I think the Marshawn Lynch thing is kind of going to get a little blown out of proportion just because they're looking for another, similar situation. I think Marshawn Lynch, the way he came out and said there's been reports that he's not even out of the locker room during the national anthem. He's not, he sits during it all the time. Like this isn't the first time he's done it. It's something he's done throughout his career, it sounds like. So I don't think it's like it has anything to do with kind of Colin Kaepernick related. And maybe he does come out and say, he's starting to do it more often and, but I don't think he was trying to bring attention to himself with it. I think he was just literally just sitting there like he usually does and just didn't stand up. I just don't think it was something he wanted to do or, he just because he doesn't have to. So he's like, well, then why am I going to if I don't want to? So just what he did. And then the Charlottesville thing, I mean, I don't even know what to say about that. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's crazy. I would love to see our government kind of come out and say how radical and terroristic the situation is, but I don't think that'll happen, but that's fine. I don't want to get into it. So it is what it's unfortunate. I really, hope those people that are out there that are living in that area that, aren't a part of that are safe.
And Brother Allende, well, what is it that you'd like to say about all that's been going on with Marshawn, Charlottesville, all that other stuff?
I think it's what JR said, which is what Jack Del Rio said. I mean, he's called beast mode for a reason. You really just got to let Marshawn be Marshawn and just get out his way because he's always going to back up whatever he say he's going to do. Even though he's not really the boisterous, this one I'm going to do in your face. He's not really the cocky type, but I think I don't know if it was a political statement. If it's something that he's always done, then that's Marshawn. Even with the Colin Kaepernick situation, Colin Kaepernick never really put it in the forefront either when he was sitting until someone kind of noticed and asked him about it, and that's when it kind of came to the forefront. As far as the Charlottesville stuff, I tried to find things to prepare to say or that I want to say, and there really aren't very many words besides I think we really need to truly start looking ourselves in the mirror and start taking responsibility for the things that are happening in this country. This is not something that we can just tweet about, that we can just put statuses and whatnot. I definitely think we need to collectively come together and not just talk about peace, but start formulating ideas and legislation and things that we can actually do to actually come about it. Me personally, I'm more so on the side of I'm a little tired of the statuses and stuff because I don't see that changing. I never saw Martin Luther King put a status on and have that be it, or I mean not a status, but like write a letter and have that just be it. You saw it in his actions. You saw it in so many activists, what they did, not what they said. That's not to say that your words don't carry weight. I think it's very important that you speak out on injustices that you see. It's just that always try to find that one extra thing that you can do. If there's a rally, try to find ways to be part of it. If you don't feel comfortable, maybe put on something on yourself. Get involved with the church or community or other things that you feel that they can contribute to this thing that we all see as a problem. But maybe we're clearly not doing enough if it keeps happening like this. So that's really all I have to say concerning it.
Well, all right. And I don't really have much to add on that. I mean, like we all said, beast mode's beast mode. He's going to do what he wants to do. And with the Charlottesville thing, the situation, it's sad. The loss of life is something that's truly tragic. But I mean, the mitigating factors that brought all that together, they're nothing new. And I think that's to the point Yinka was raising there. That's really what everyone's going to have to come to grips with. Like, this isn't new. These kind of crazy things have been going on for a really long time. And hopefully, seeing this out in the open, like it was with people showing their faces and putting really, their names on the hate. Hopefully this is maybe the catalyst that leads to some kind of a change in the way that we deal and talk about these things so that, maybe we do start to make some progress. But Yeah, that's really all I got. In the end, we were able to get the entire crew here together. So, JR, Miles, Yinka, thanks for coming on. All y'all out there, thanks for listening to another episode of the Climbing the Pocket podcast. And yeah, we'll talk to you again soon.